Once upon a time, in a faraway land called Inine, there lived a kind old woman known as Name Agadi, who lived with her granddaughter Omani. They were the two left of the family and tried their best to put food and smiles on their tables and faces. Nemagadi was the oldest woman in the village, and in the evenings many of the village children, including the king's children, would go to Nemagadi and her granddaughter Omani's house to listen to interesting stories that the old woman usually told them. The king's children would also sneak from the palace to listen to these stories and then with their guards sneak back to the palace without the king and his queen knowing. The children loved Nemagadi so much that some of them would often help her to do some chores like going to firewood or stream to fetch wood and water for her, except the king's children. During the harmattan season, things started to change for the villagers. A great calamity started befalling them, and there was sickness, hardship, and other strange things happening that they had never experienced in the history of Inine before. The king and village elders started seeking for the causes of the problems and how to solve them. It happened one evening that the village children went to Nemagadi's house to listen to her stories, and Omamoli, one of the sons of the prominent chief in the village, who was also there, fell sick and was rushed home for treatment. After about a week, he recovered. Few days later, two other children fell ill again as they went to Nemagadi's house to listen to her stories. It became so common a phenomenon that the village elders worried and warned all the children never to go to Nemagadi's house again to listen to any of her stories. It was terrible. The children felt deprived of the joy that used to be theirs once when they were always going to Nemagadi's house. Nemagadi could not eat for days, and in despair she was. Amani was the only consolation she had. After about a month of the continuous persistence of the problems in the village, it was concluded that Nemagadi was the evil one bewitching the entire village with her evil powers. Chief Obigbo, being the head of the village council of elders, returned home from his journey and led the others to believe that unless Nemagadi was led out of the village, the problems of the villagers will still continue to persist. He said he had gone to consult the gods and had been told she was the one attracting the problems, and nobody questioned him about what he was saying, not even the king. The following day, Nemagadi was driven out of Inine village. In tears and with their little belongings, she held on money in her hand and they left village as the villagers booed at them. They booed at them. When they got to an intersection, Nemagadi turned to her granddaughter and said, "Oh, Mani, my granddaughter, here our paths must terminate." The surprised Omani, shocked, held on to her grandmother. "No, grandmother," she cried. "Our paths cannot terminate here, grandmother. Where do I have to go? It's only you I have left in my whole world." "Listen to me, Omani. You are just 12 years old and have a long way to go in your life," she said to her granddaughter. "You must go. Go to the next village and seek solace. and may the gods of our forefathers be with you. As for me, never mind. I'll go wherever the wind blows. Old Manny stood shaking and started sobbing. Why can't we go together, grandmother? She asked in great distress. How can I leave you at this age to move alone in the forest? You might get killed, grandmother, but with me by your side, we can both fight and make it okay. I've been thrown out of the village for what I did not commit, my granddaughter. The news must have spread, and if I go with you, the news will thwart your future. So go, my child, and if you find favor on time, search for me, and we will be together once again. But in case our paths did not cross again, my granddaughter, remember my love and all the virtues of life I have taught you, and live by them. Omani was bashed. Hanging onto her frail old grandmother, she cried until her grandmother shoved her away after giving her half of the food they had carried along with them when they left in a village. Omani, dejected and forlorn, moved towards the direction her grandmother had directed her to go. It was a very far road indeed. She walked and walked. She walked and walked along the narrow paths, fear as if a wild animal might emerge from the village to devour her. She was shaking, and after a long time, got there 8 days later. She fell asleep at the first doorstep of the house she came across that was still opened at the gate. She was sleeping at the doorstep when the owners of the house turned their way on their way back from their journey. They returned from their journey. They were surprised to find a dirty-looking young girl sleeping at the front of their house, barely 12 years old, they thought. She was so weak that the mother of the house, Mrs. Obi, panicking, told her children to take her into the house and assist her to become okay. She was washed, clothed in her new dress, and fed and put to sleep, with instructions she should not be disturbed. Meanwhile, Nemagadi had walked on towards the deep forest. In the forest, she searched for different kinds of fruits, of which she survived on. She broke some branches of trees and built a shanty house where she managed to live and struggle to make ends meet each day, and was lucky none of the wild animals came towards her. One day, a beautiful bird came to her and told her she was a very kind old woman, and the people of Inini, where she came from, did not know the assets they had just lost. The bird told her that the forest spirit king had decided to equip her with benevolent powers that she would use to help humanity. Within a period of 2 years, Nemagadi had become very powerful, transformed into one of the best traditional medicine women that people came from far and wide to consult and have healings for their ailments. She was taught how to transform into a bird and various types of animals. She would change and go to faraway lands and help people. She became so popular that her name was an household word. She did not charge anybody that came for treatment. But when she was done with healing anyone, they would give her whatever they had or so desired. Omani, on her side, did not tell the news about where she was coming from. She did not tell the new family she found herself in about her background. She feigned to have lost her memory, and they accepted her that way. The family was a very rich one, And one day, one of their daughters from the city came home and liked Omani. When she was about to go, she decided to take Omani along with her to help her with household work. She sent Omani to school when they got to the city, and about 5 years later, when Omani turned 19 years old, she started to handle the family business. She would often think about her grandmother, and she would cry herself to sleep almost every night. It dawned on her that it was about 7 years or more now since she left her grandmother, and felt something terrible must have happened to her in the forest. How can an old woman like that survive all by herself in such dense forest? She will often wonder. She must have died, but she promised herself that when she has started something of her own, when she has finished serving her employers, she will go back and search for her mother, her beautiful grandmother, her kind-hearted grandmother. She thanked her Creator for all the good luck that had come her way. At the village of Inine, meanwhile, the problems had increased, and the villagers were now going from one village to another, seeking for the best traditional seer and healer they could find to help them. They were moving from one village to another, from one village to another. The worst was that the first son of the king of Inine had fallen sick and was about to die. The soothsayer they went to told them that many years ago they had forcefully accused an old, innocent, and kind woman in their village of witchcraft and driven her and her granddaughter out of the village instead of them going out to find out the cause of their problems and solving it at that time. He told them that they should go and look for the old woman, beg her for forgiveness, and return her back to the village of Inini. Otherwise, the king's heir apparent to the throne will not survive, and the king will also die. That was the solution to their problems. The soothsayer turned his back on them and refused to speak to them any longer, and they left. For almost 6 months, they searched the length and breadth of the neighboring towns and villages, but they could not find Nemagadi and her granddaughter Omani. Anywhere the king and his council of chiefs went to, it was the same message they got, that they should go and look for Nemagadi and her granddaughter, otherwise the king and his heir will not survive. And they told them when they get them, they must share the kingdom into two and give the old woman a part of the kingdom for them to survive. It was terrible. One day, someone directed the king to a very powerful woman that could cure and heal any type of illness, that she was living in the forest. The person told the king that this woman must cure no matter the cause or the hex laid upon anyone. She will cure the person. So the king, being glad to hear that, quickly left with his chiefs to the part of the forest they had told him the old woman was living. On getting there, they found the old woman surrounded by many sick people she was treating. Some already were okay and were getting ready to leave the place. Nemagadi had, on her part, always visited her village in the form of a bird. She always now changed to and was searching for the cause of the problems and solution to help the people of Inini without the villagers knowing. She welcomed them and asked why they had come to see her. They did not recognize Nemagadi any longer because she had changed. She had grown very old, older by more than 7 years, but looked healthier than when she was in the village of Inini. But Nemagadi on her part recognized them. The minute they set foot on her land, she recognized them. She knew they would come one day because she had been told. But she did not say anything. They told her that they had come to take her to the village of Hinini, where the king's eldest child and oldest son lay critically ill, and the heir must not die. They begged her that if she comes with them and heals the son of the, if she will be able to heal the son of that terrible illness, half of the kingdom will be given to her. She then ordered them to go and bring the king's son to her. She will not go to that village on her own without their doing something about it. So the king and his men went back, and following day brought Obi to Nemagadi. As soon as Obi, the heir to the king's throne, was brought to Nemagadi, he began to talk. Somebody that had been ill and lying there for months and not talking started to speak instantly. They were all amazed. 3 days later, he became healed. They offered Nemagadi so many gifts, but she refused to accept them. But before they left, she invited them to her backyard and sat them down. The king was the first to talk. He handed over half of his kingdom to Nemagadi. But before Nemagadi would allow them to go, she had to have her way. Many years ago, you drove an old innocent woman and her grandchild out of your kingdom with false accusation that she was a witch and the cause of the problem of the land. Now you've come back to that same old woman for her help. Isn't it ironical? She asked, removing the wrapper on her head, the veil she used to cover her head. She removed it. They all gasped in surprise as they recognized her and fell on their knees, including the king. And for the first time, a king of the land was bowing down to someone, and a woman at that, to the astonishment of everyone present. They started begging her for forgiveness. Why is it that old men and women in the society are often looked at suspiciously and abandoned in society as old witches and wizards? Yet you all pray for long life and want to live to an old age, she asked them in a sensible and serious note. Every day you pray for long life, but you never care what befalls the old and aged people in the society. If I were to be an evil one, I would have allowed your son would be the heir apparent to your throne to die, and you will also die. Thank your Creator for his blessings. And the king was shocked to hear this from the old woman. Thank your Creator that the kind old woman standing before you now is a kind one, a good person, not an evil woman, she said, tapping her chest with dignity. We are so sorry, great mother, they said, each in a lamenting tone. They didn't know what to say or do again. Nemesis catching up with people. The old woman looked at them and said, you must all learn to be good and kind to old people because they might be your backbone in the future, she said. I will allow you to take your hair home only on one condition, she said, staring at them all in one glance. Tell us, great mother, and we will have it done right now, they replied. You will go and search for Manny, my granddaughter, and bring her here back to me. Otherwise, the prince will not be allowed to leave this place. She threw at them. The surprised men glanced at one another. Where in the world, in Almighty's name, will they be able to find her? After all these years, they wondered within them. But that was the condition, and it had to be met. A great search commenced, and 2 weeks later, the whereabouts of Omani was discovered. The villagers talked to Omani's new family, and they released her to them after much begging. Omani had now become a great lady of beauty, wealth, and affluence, a modern lady compared to those in the village of Hinine. Omani met her grandmother, and tears flowed like rivers down their faces. The heir apparent to Hinine kingdom was released to go, and with happiness they all went back to Hinine to live. Grandmother and granddaughter talked at length, each telling the other their experiences. Nemagadi thanked her creator for everything, no matter what she has passed through, and went back to the part of the kingdom given to her by the king. She was welcomed by the whole villagers and led to the kingdom that had been given to her. But she made Omani the queen of the kingdom, while she offered advice and guidance at the background. She did not become the queen, but made her granddaughter the queen. Omani, the beautiful Omani, the beautiful modern Omani, with her knowledge of trading, turned the kingdom into one of the greatest trading kingdoms in those times. That is the end of my story. Subscribe, like, and share the video. Thank you.